in today's video, I'll be taking us on how to draft the trending jumbo trouser. So I'm working directly on the fabric. So the first thing we are going to do is to measure 2 inch from top of the fabric down. So this is actually a base. Okay, this will serve as the waist. Okay, so the next thing now is to measure a vertical line for the crotch. Now for the vertical line, like I said in our previous video, which was a culotte, to for us to get this vertical line, you are going to use your hip circumference. My hip circumference is 40, so divided by 10. This is back. I'm actually working with the back right now. So this hip circumference divided by 10 now will give me 4. So that's my hip circumference. 40 divided by 10 will give me 4. Now 4 plus 1, that 1 inch now is actually the sewing allowance, which will give me 5. So it's a 5 inch that I measure from the side out. So the next thing now is to measure the length of your trouser. Measure the length of the trouser. Measure out the length of the trouser. Measure out the length of your trouser. Then after you're done with that, with the help of the chalk and the ruler, where you just trace the line out. So the next thing now is to bring out the hip line. So that's the hip line and the crotch, the crotch horizontal line and the hip line. So yeah, done with that, you use your chalk now and your ruler to trace the line out. So the next thing is to bring out the knee line. So this is the knee line that we are bringing out. So that's the knee line. For this particular trouser, we really not need the knee line, but I just have to put it. So after we are done with all the lines, now the next thing is to start placing the measurement. So for this particular trouser, we're only using one measurement all through, which is the hip circumference. So we're using the hip circumference all through. So from the waist down to the length of the trouser, you're using the hip measurement all through because it's a baggy trouser. So I'm using the hip measurement all through. So after we are done with that, with the help of the ruler and the chalk, now you just trace the line out. You trace out the line. Trace out the line. So the next thing now is to bring out the crotch, the 4 inch now. So the remaining part now is the sewing allowance. So still measure the 4 inch down. Like I said, for you to get that crotch area is just for you to divide your hip circumference by 10. So this is me working with the back. So actually I'm working with the back. So for the back, you divide your hip circumference by 10. So you trace the line out. So after you're done with that, the next thing is to add the sewing allowance all through. So we are done with the drafting now. So add the sewing allowance all through. Add the sewing allowance all through from the waist to the crotch. And also to the down part, you add the sewing allowance. So after you're done with adding the sewing allowance, you start cutting. You start cutting. Start cutting from the crotch to the waist. You cut. Ensure you add your sewing allowances before you start cutting. Do not forget to add your sewing allowances before you start cutting. Your sewing allowance you can add from 1 inch to 2 inch. Then after you're done with that, you slit that part open because it's two parts, one side to the other side. So just slit them open. So as you can see, we are done with the back. That's the back panel. So move over to the front. So this is the front. You've already measured the 2 inch from the top down. So the next thing now is to measure that vertical line now, the crotch vertical line. Like I said in the back, to get this vertical line, you divide your hip circumference. So this is the front. We divide the hip circumference by 20 instead of 10. 10 is for the back, while 20 is for the front. Whatever measurement you get there, you add 1 inch to it. The 1 inch is the sewing allowance. Then you measure from the side of the fabric out. That's how to get the vertical line. So we're done with that. With the help of the chalk and the ruler, just trace out the line down to the trouser length. So the next thing now is to bring out the hip line and the crotch line. These horizontal lines are the lines where you're going to place your measurements. So the next line is the knee line. For this particular trouser, we really do not need the knee line, but just for emphasis, just had to bring it out. So the next thing now is to start applying the measurements. Now, like I said, in this particular trouser, the measurements you are using there is the hip measurements because it's the largest part of a trouser. So you're using the hip measurements all through from the waist down to the length, actual length where the trouser stops. So after we are done with that, with the help of the ruler and the chalk, just trace out the line. You trace out the line. Then the next thing we're going to do, okay, you're tracing out the line. Ensure you trace out the line appropriately. Trace it out very well so it will be visible. The next thing you're going to do now is to now place the crotch length. So that's the crotch length now. You're bringing out now. That's the 2 inch. The 2 inch I got from dividing the hip circumference with 20, then adding 1 inch to it, which make it 3. So the 1 inch I said is actually for the sewing allowance. So we'll measure the 2 inch down to the length of a trouser. So after we are done with that, with the help of a ruler and the chalk, now we trace out the line. Trace out the line. So after you're done with that, the next thing now is to put the sewing allowances. So just put the sewing allowances from the waist to the length of the trouser. So the next thing is to what? Cut. So you cut out the trouser from the extra line that you have given. Those extra lines are the sewing allowance that you give. So ensure you put your sewing allowance. So please, if you are watching this video and you have not subscribed to my channel, please do well to press the subscribe button so you get notified of all my videos each time I upload.